From the heart of the Midwest, where heritage meets the glass, you're tuned in to a deep dive with the man behind the Badger Beer Report. He's taking you behind the tap handle and into the brew house to talk shop with the legends of the craft. This is The Session with Greg Washington.
Welcome in. Welcome to The Session with me, Greg Washington. I am here with two of our youngest brewers, head brewers in Wisconsin, Kiley Lofy and Jarret Mack. Kiley Lofy from Hillsboro Brewing Company in Hillsboro, and Jarret from Hoya Hop House in Waupun. Both mainstream breweries. Hillsboro brings definitely a lot more history to it. Hoya Hop House is a year and a half old. Coming up on 2, I believe, January or December, something like that. We'll get to all those details in a second. But one of the upcoming brewers up in our state here in a place that is pretty rural, y'all. It's out in the Driftless area. Most of y'all probably haven't been there. I'll speak for myself. I haven't been there. But Kiley has been making waves out there. Number one, really put himself on the map by winning the Wisconsin IPA Fan Award, held at Third Space every year. So it's an IPA festival. It's an IPA competition. The brewers put their beers in, submit their beers. There is a judging of people like me and beer snobs and beer geeks and people who know beer and beer judges. And then there's also a fan part. And the fan part is the fans and the people who are there. And Hillsboro won the best IPA from the fans. So that immediately put Kiley on our radar, saying, wait, who? Because normally I think Venture Brew Co. is a 2-time winner of that fan award specifically. And Venture Beer Co. is one of our veteran breweries at this point, and they are definitely one of our better breweries at this point, in my opinion. So to see Hillsboro and Kiley rise up to that, it was really interesting. So without further ado, let's bring Kiley Lofy on from Hillsboro, and I hope I said his name right.
You did. You got it right.
All right, excellent. Nice to see you, Kiley. So Kiley, before we get into the logistics of what's going on here in the craft beer industry at this time, can you tell us a little bit about you and also Hillsboro Brewing Company?
Yes, of course. I'll start with me. Grew up in Lake Cheney, Wisconsin. Grew up in a big family of 9 kids. Went to school for plant science and wildlife biology, so I was really interested in science early on. And my introduction to beer was I started dating this young lady in college, and her father brewed beer. I didn't drink any alcohol. My family didn't drink alcohol, but I decided to brew beer just to get to know him and found a passion for it. So streamlined right through college. Still was doing the science with plants and wildlife, but ended up getting a job at Potosi outside of college and became a contract brewer there. I was trained by John Gentry. He's a phenomenal brewer, phenomenal friend. And I worked closely with Amy. She was a scientist. I got to actually work in the laboratory there. So that was beyond the best experience. I love that place. Eventually I hopped over to Hillsboro Brewing about 4 years ago. And that's actually where my now father-in-law, grew up. So I'm making beer and I'm living in the town my wife's parents grew up in. So now I'm married to that gal and making beer here. And Hillsboro Brewing Company, this rendition started in 2012. It started off in a small brew pub in Reedsburg, where the original head brewer, Dave Dietz, he was brewing small batches. The owner, Snapper Verbsky, was going over there and picking it up and bringing it to this little tap room they had downtown. And they just started to build this really great brand loyalty. And they grew and grew and grew. They went through about 4 or 5 different renditions of a brew house, started brewing in town. And then in 2017, they purchased this giant building, which I'm in. It's a Carnation plant built in 1914. So now we have a wedding venue. We have Lake Louis' old brewing system. It's 15 barrels, and we're brewing about 3 or 4 days a week, crushing about 2,000 barrels a year. So, we've just, since 2012 to now, just really, really grew. But we hit a particularly unique target market, which I'm sure we'll get into here in the future.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. What are you drinking there?
This is Cowboys and Aliens. This is a hazy IPA. It's a collaboration with 608 Brewing Company. Phil is the owner there. By far, like one of my favorite breweries. They were big influences, or he's a big influence in my beer and science. And so, yeah, drinking that beer. Love it.
One of the things that jumps out at me about your brewery but I haven't been there is 40 taps.
Yes.
You want to hit that? Is that how?
Yeah.
I mean, most craft brewers have what? We're dealing with what? 16, 12, right? Some push it to 20, 24, but 40, Kiley?
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. And when I first jumped onto the ship with Hillsboro, they weren't all full, and that was just because they were so busy they couldn't keep them full. Now we're getting to the point where we always have extra ideas and like new beers we want to make, but we have a 3-barrel pilot system, so that allows us to experiment. So like I have a pumpkin pie, yam, horchata like beer I have coming down the next couple of weeks that we'll put on draft and stuff. So yeah, it's just we have everything possible.
Okay, so they're not all big batch beers then.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense, right? Because that's a lot of beer to be moving.
Yeah, we want to keep it fresh. You need to
keep it fresh.
Yeah,
you need to keep it fresh, right, Kiley? Because people like me who may see this on Badger Beer Report may roll up to Hillsboro and may roll up to your 3 most oldest beers or something, right? Because you never know what everybody's going to get at any kind of given point, or how the brewery presents itself, if that makes sense. We talk about this a lot at the Badger Beer Report, where the brewery has, sometimes the brewery presents itself as a nice, calm, wonderful place with a beautiful breeze, and sometimes the brewery presents itself as packed and overloaded and overwhelming. Sometimes the brewery presents itself as a concert hall. Sometimes the brewery presents itself as a yoga studio. So breweries, breweries are all over the place. One of the things before we get on to why I really want you here, Hillsboro's not just a brewery though, right?
Correct. We have a wedding venue upstairs, so that like is extremely helpful, and then we have a full-on restaurant and bar downstairs, so that has helped the business grow, and it provides many different cash flows for our company.
Yeah, it keeps it fresh, and like I said, Hillsboro feels like it's in the middle of nowhere.
This is correct.
Yeah, and what is the pot? It's smallish, right?
Yeah, like 1,000 people. My wife is not gonna like that I don't know that number, but I've only been here for 4 years, right?
Okay.
It's small. I mean, we don't even have a traffic light. I think we have only a handful of stop signs. Our school district's is D5, so relatively small. But we're a strong bohemian culture in this town. So,
and you clearly must have a strong distribution plan too.
Yes. So S&S Distributing, before they got bought out by Bill's, they were crucial to supporting the Hillsboro brand and did such a phenomenal job with getting our beer out, and they were very loyal. And then Bill's took them over this year, and you don't know how that's going to turn out, but oh my gosh, they are putting pedal to the metal. They are pushing our beer out in further market areas, and we're having a hard time keeping up, but we love that.
Yeah. And Hillsboro, and that leads me to Hillsboro has built a strong regional footprint. Sorry, y'all, I have to look up to my notes here. And with craft beer, barrel age, broad distribution, y'all kind of do everything out there from what I'm told. As a young head brewer, how do you balance maintaining the traditional craft lineup that I'm pretty sure some of your strong regulars that have been there forever, with creating products that can maybe grab Gen Z, like house root beers, what do they call them? Tainted sodas, or no?
Dirty sodas.
Dirty sodas. Thank you. See, look, Generation X guy needs a Generation Z y'all to tell him what's up. And also lighter sessionable things too. We're seeing a trend in sessionable beers. We're seeing a trend in all that. So let's talk about that balance and what's in your head as far as looking at your menu.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we can break that up into two categories. One is distribution, and one would be like at the actual brewery. So in distribution, we're extremely unique, where half of the products we distribute is kegged and half of it's cans. So we're basically split down the middle, and that's very odd for a brewery. So that is a testimony that a lot of our beer is being drank at restaurants and then sold in liquor stores. So we have a really good like a following of the heritage consumers, and most of those would be like our brands that existed before I was working here. So like our flagships, the Blonde walks into a bar, our Friday Nights Oktoberfest, Snappy IPA. So those will be our like main dogs. Now in the tap room, that's where you kind of make, you know, more of an impact on a consumer. And so we try and keep it fresh and unique. And so when I first started working, I had all these ideas, you know, coming to Hillsboro. I was like, oh man, like I want to do a Sour Patch Kid beer where I boil down Sour Patch Kids, blend it up, and like put it on draft, and, you know, just like wacky, unique things. And they said, yeah, go ahead. So just by having unique stuff that can cater to maybe some nostalgia, or a little bit to maybe like just like the youthhood of a new Gen Z drinker that will grab them, come into our tap room, spend some money, get some food. But we don't want to forget about our heritage, and our older clientele, that who is primarily our target market. We aren't known for making super crazy IPAs, super crazy sours, or super crazy barrel aged beers. That was never a reputation. We're just getting into that now, or we have been the last 4 years. And we still want to treat them well. So we have this awesome portfolio of lagers and lagering. I brought that kind of from Potosi, as I did a lot of lagers there. So by creating lagers, it seems that's like a lot of like the sessionable drinks. That is great for both demographics, but I've noticed that in the tap room specifically, the older demographic loves that.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. So have you, I mean, obviously I don't want to get you, I don't want, we're not opening the books fully here, y'all. But have you, how long have you been head brewer at Hillsboro?
So I got the official title back in like February or March. But
This year.
Yeah, this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
and as soon as they hired me, we got the Lake Louise new brewing system. Dave was operating on a little bit smaller system, but we had an increased production. And he essentially was like, all right, Kiley, like this is your thing now. So you can just kind of take it over. And so slowly, like, you know, for the last 4 years, you know, I've been doing it, brewing it, but like we're entering new like products and trying out new chemistry and trying new methods of making beer. And we're getting a lot of luck with it, and I don't know if it's luck, but it's like it's getting a lot of influence from other people to help us and stuff. It's a whole conglomeration of stuff.
Okay, so let's clarify this. So Hillsboro has a big system that we brew our blonde and all that. How big is that one?
So that would be a 15 barrel batch. So that's about 1,000 gallons of beer. But our fermenters are 30 barrels. So we usually do 2 turns in a day. So we'll start at 6, end at 4, and we'll have about 2,000 gallons of beer.
And then, so what I'm hearing is Lake Louis Brewing, when it combined with Wisconsin Brewing. Lake Louis Brewing used to be in, oh my goodness, I'm spacing. Arena. Thank you. So that system is now at Hillsboro, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, and believe it or not, I think it's originally from is it Oregon? It's from Oregon. So he got it from Oregon, and then his mash tun didn't have any mash rakes in it. So they were hand mixing their batches over, but by hand for an hour or whatever they were doing. So we had to make a custom. Our owner Snapper, he is great with machinery and stuff. So he developed this whole like auger system for us and paddles and everything in there. So that was the whole thing.
Nice. Okay. So would you agree with this, that younger drinkers aren't loyal to a single beverage category? They jump from craft to cider to mocktails to RDTs in one sitting almost, sometimes it seems like. Is the future of a successful brewery, is it mastering beer, or is it becoming a general beverage company, Kiley?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, unfortunately, we have a liquor, bar, so people can get mixed drinks and they can get beer. And that works out for us. Now, it breaks my heart a little bit when they do decide to get a mixed drink over a beer. But with that being said, we've been playing around with the ideas of making mocktails in a can or mocktails on draft. Taking like a plain seltzer base and potentially adding flavors that you could get in a potential cocktail. And that would be like a draft room only, you know, for us, because we are a brewery and want to keep it that way. But I think it's different for each kind of demographic and brewery, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And your numbers are supporting that, I would assume, right? So the seltzers are going out, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, seltzers have been decreasing, but if you do like a nice twist on some things, yeah, so seltzers unfortunately just don't move fast for us.
And then, go on.
I'd say sours and like hazy IPAs. You know, I know some brewers are saying like, oh, IPAs are dead, and you know, sours, blah blah blah. When we come on with a new hazy or sour, like that's what brings people into the tap room. Like it's the most excitement. And I try to always bring a hazy IPA and a sour to a beer fest, one that we don't have in distribution, just to say, hey, people, we make more than just a cream ale and vanilla bean stout. You know, like we do this fun stuff too.
Right. And so then, do y'all have in-house THC and NAs? And how are we handling those things?
Yes, that's a great question. Based off of like our clientele, we don't do any THC. That's just not something we kind of wanted to play around with for the brand, which is what it is. For NAs, we came up with our first NA about 2 months ago. We have the ability, because we have a centrifuge and a pasteurizer, which is very odd for the brewery our size. You know, larger breweries have that equipment, but we do too, because Snapper's awesome and he bought it for us. So and the NA went over really well. So I have this whole list of like sour NAs to do, IPA NAs, and you know, all that fun stuff.
Oh wow, that's good. Because we see most brewers, you know, doing athletic and all that because they just don't have the ability. And athletic's great, right? Especially, it's definitely a brand that is become very approachable to a lot of people. So yeah, if you had 30 seconds to sell a 22-year-old on whether they should spend their weekend at a tap room like Hillsboro or a cocktail lounge, now maybe this is not a great question for you because y'all got both. But but if you had somebody saying, I don't want to go to your brewery, I just rather go to my dive bar, or I just rather my bar up the street, what what do you have for that?
I love this question. I would say like Hillsboro Brewing or a tap room in general is a community space. And when you put your money into a community space, that money then gets distributed back into community members who then reinvest it back in community. So I'm saying community a lot because that's important for our brand. And it's important for a lot of smaller or larger, medium-sized tap rooms and breweries. And additionally, like our brewery, we got like 50 employees, and it's introductory for high schoolers, college or retired folks, full-time. It covers all bases. So you're funding these people's, lives here. So I would say it's you're investing in that community. I think do local stuff. Local stuff's cool.
Anyway, excellent. And do my last question for you in this part is, where do you, where does your spidey sense see this going as far as like where we're going? Do you see us diversifying more? Do you see maybe coming back? Let's talk, 1 or 2 years. How about that? Because, projecting any further than out is good. But like, what does your spidey sense say? And then, of course, that's going to have to, go into the brew schedule at some point, right?
Yeah, I would say bringing back old school beers, I think, is coming to be like a trend again, or just beers that like don't get a lot of love. So like, for example, Dunkelweisens or old school hazy IPAs. I know Joel's a fan of those. Just old traditional beers. Lower ABV does be like there's a trend in there. And to combat that, we've been making hoppy pilsners. So it's a low ABV, but you still got that kick of an IPA. So for a brewing perspective, I would say kind of hoping and kind of seeing that in our tap room.
All right. And lastly, what can everybody do to support your local brewery? What are the best things outside of showing up and drinking?
Well, that's awesome. I would say just I mentioned community. I also would say just like be nice and be kind to like each other at beer fests and at like beer functions. Like we're all a team here, and so like it's a pretty cutthroat business, brewing, and being young and like being initially a contract brewer. No one took me serious as a contract brewer because I was brewing other people's beers, and like I wasn't part of the cool kids table when I was at Potosi. And then even coming here and like I said, I won IPA Fest for People's Choice. I got kicked back by people, and that's not great. This is not the type of community we want to be in. So I think we should support each other and beer's a community thing. So be happy and drink beer.
And on that note, I'm just gonna let you go because that's just a great way to end it. I almost want to just end the stream on that, but I'm not gonna do that to Jarret. I can't do that to my guy Jarret. But no, thank you for joining us, Kiley. And good luck out there at Hillsboro, and I will be hopefully dropping in soon.
All right, just keep me updated, man. More than happy to have you over.
Excellent. Thanks for your time, buddy.
No problem.
All right, excellent. So that is a really good introspective of Kiley Lofy, who's head brewer of Hillsboro, out there in the Driftless area. Man, like the closest brewery to Hillsboro, I believe, is Gravity Box, which is another good one, by the way, in Mauston. But they're kind of out there, y'all. So check your maps, man, and make your road trips. You can maybe hit Gravity Box and then come down to Hillsboro. And then, as I don't think Kiley said it, but they're kind of close to, they're close-ish to the La Crosse area, and then in between there's Footjoy and Alchemy, right, y'all? So there's some places out there that y'all can piece together, and then the Driftless is beautiful, y'all. Y'all already know. So there'll be plenty of scenic ideas, plenty of outdoor things to do. So check out Hillsboro Brewing Company, y'all. So my next guest here is from one of our newest breweries, Hoya Hop House. They opened up last January. So they opened up in January of 25. They started brewing in late the previous year. They are family owned and run mostly. Jarret will tell us all about that. But without further ado, we're going to bring up Jarret Mack from Hoya Hop House and Waupun. What's going on, Jarret? Did I get anything wrong before we move along?
No, I think you got it. Yeah, we opened up last year, January. Started brewing a few months before we opened, and then family ran. It's ran by 5 of us, being all family. So mother, father, brother-in-law, and then my oldest sister, and then me, of course. So. And
while we're here, where did this come from? Why does the family want to make a brewery in Waupun?
I think just instinctively growing up, it was kind of always within my mom's wishes of wanting to run a family business. And we just kind of like collectively, when me and my sister moved away to Milwaukee and we would come to visit, my family would come to visit, we'd always take them to breweries. We'd always just kind of like anywhere we went to, any city we went to a brewery to go check out. It was always just kind of like a fun communal space to like have our family at. And we have a relatively big family. So like, a brewery is typically always a large space and it accommodates a lot of people. And you can obviously be underage and go to a brewery. And so like having a very diverse family as far as ages go, it just kind of always worked out that way. And when looking at our town and where we grew up in, it was something we never had. I think Waupun's last brewery was like 1900s. And so it was just kind of something when looking, if we're going to do a brewery, where would we do it? And it was just kind of like a no-brainer to look at our hometown that didn't have that. Instead of looking at a market that was maybe oversaturated or that has already that existing. So,
and y'all took a space, right? One of my favorite places for a brewery is Main Street of a small town. I just love rolling up to a small town, having it on the main street there, because again, I feel that community connection almost immediately. Did y'all feel that?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a no-brainer in sense too of like, if you're renovating a space, look at your main streets. Don't ever look off of the beaten path. The main street is where you want to build your city up. When you're looking at these small towns that are starting to kind of gain traction, the main street is where you want the attraction to be for your city. And so if you build something on Main Street, it will start to incentivize other businesses to do the same and start to bring more people to that area, which your whole goal is to kind of revitalize a city that maybe has been needing love. So that was kind of the goal with why we located where we are, and why we chose this building. So,
and y'all weren't obviously afraid of the timing, meaning y'all came in way after the craft beer boom and during the end of the pandemic mess. So not ideal time to start a brewery. So, but was that was that a thinking of it, or was it like, no, we can just make this work?
I mean, yeah, that was definitely the nervousness when looking into like where the industry is going. The thing that we were keeping in our mind is like we're in a far enough area where there's not a lot of breweries around us. The only bars that are here in town are just local dive bars. So those factors were kind of like already going for us, that we had this space that kind of felt like we could kind of make it work here. And then also us kind of leading the project ourselves and not choosing a general contractor to do it was kind of a big incentive for keeping our budget in check and keeping it to where we wanted to. And on top of that, having a lot of the community support to see this establishment happen was kind of a big drive as well.
Yeah, and so one of the things I love about your space, and so I was telling Kylie in the pre-production. Normally, I don't talk about pre-production, but and I want to share it with you in the audience. It was really I generally don't try to do this on this one, but I have to. My one visit to your brewery, I came away just mostly mystified about what y'all were trying to do beer wise, and it reminds me, Jarret, of one of the, like, when you meet someone and like they're so mysterious that you want to make sure that you at least try to meet them again, because you find you're intrigued, but you're not like, you know what I mean, there's something there. So
Yeah.
what I found out, y'all, the something there is that Jarret has a background in cocktails. And Jarret, and I didn't know it at the time when I rolled up the Hoya Hop House, but Hoya Hop House has I would say a pretty a deep cocktail strain going on, and that comes from you too, Jarret, right?
Yeah. So the whole cocktail program was that was our initial, when we were thinking about starting this whole business, that was like built into the idea. It was never like a forethought, a second thought, like, oh, beer is dying, let's quickly rotate and let's start doing cocktails as well. No, like when we were building this whole facility out, I was able to build my entire bar based upon doing cocktails and how I wanted the cocktails to flow out, how I wanted the beer to be presented, and kind of just the layout of our bar. Because I feel like when you go to a lot of breweries, the unfortunate thing is, that was a new law that came into place, I think, of last year, where if you weren't a brew pub, you were just a standard brewery, you can now serve alcohol as well. So a lot of these breweries did not have the foundation put in place to be able to do cocktails, which makes it really hard on them. And that's why you see a lot of kind of like, I don't want to say like bad cocktails by any means, but just like your run-of-the-mill standard cocktails, because they don't have necessarily the space or the ability to do these more elaborate stuff. I had the full build out already in mind to do all these cocktails. So I have my service well set up. I have all my production in the back of the brew house for making all these cocktails. Like I had everything already pre-put in mind, that I knew when we were going to open that this was kind of the route I was going to take as well.
Yeah, you bring a background, as we said, a strong cocktail background into your brewery, and you actually develop your cocktail recipes right alongside your beer lineup. How does thinking like a mixologist change the way you approach recipe development for your beers?
Yeah, it's kind of a fun thing to intertwine the two, because when you're looking at like beer is a very like, it's relatively involved in the sense that it's a whole day process. You're creating, you're then fermenting, you're then trying, sampling. 7 barrels I produce, so that's 7 barrels of experiment, which is relatively intimidating sometimes. It's a long, drawn-out process to get to where I'm trying to go. But with the cocktail side of things, that's immediate. I'm sampling, I'm trying, I'm blending differently, I'm trying something differently. So it's being able to try things in a smaller platform at a faster rate, which I think then helps develop my brain in the sense of like, well, now if I look at this in the same sense as a beer, I can do kind of micro replications of like flavors that I want to see in a beer. So, if I'm looking for doing some type of cocktail inspired beer, or if I'm just looking at like the flavor in this cocktail and trying to get that into beer, well, I can kind of figure out how I'm doing that on the cocktail side of things and try to think about that now in the beer side and how that can be integrated. And if I'm trying to get that exact flavor, how I can work that in, and at what part of the brewing process do I want to kind of integrate that. So it's kind of this like fun collage between the two, where I get to kind of look at it in two different aspects, but be able to intertwine the two. And it kind of makes me inspired to do certain beers that maybe I wouldn't have done. So if I didn't, make a cocktail and then I tried that cocktail and I was like, damn, that could be a fun beer. And then I make a beer out of it. So that's kind of where like it's fun to have the two work off of each other for my mind. Same thing with like syrups. Like I'm constantly making syrups. I'm always making these different types of syrups. And in making these syrups, I'm like, this can make for a really fun beer if I can figure out how to make all these flavors work, but into a beer. So.
And that, y'all, was what Jarret just explained was what when I left Hoya Hop House, that's my first time, I didn't understand was the mixology and what he was bringing to what I left saying, what is this guy doing brewing wise? And then when I found out and I learned who Jarret was and I talked to him a couple times at these beer festivals, and then I'm like, oh, this is all making sense. So I need to get back to Hoya Hop House pretty much ASAP. I like the beers. I was just trying to figure out in my head what was going on, and I didn't really make that connection with the cocktail. So if any of y'all get out to Hoya Hop House, actually when y'all get to Hoya Hop House, keep that in mind as far as the cocktail and the beer angle. And that leads me to say, Jarret, it sounds like Hoya Hop House, whether intentional or not, set themselves up pretty good in this environment, given what I was talking to Kiley about how younger drinkers on the trend seem to be going, I wouldn't say away from beer, but things that supplement beer, meaning, a seltzer and, one of your beers, or an egg, one of your beers. So am I right to say that Hoya Hop House is in a good position, you feel, in this area? And am I also right to say that y'all maybe didn't see this coming, or maybe you did?
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of, when looking at the shift, I mean, the whole reason I got into cocktail bartending is because I was sick of the beer industry. It's because I hated where I was going with the beer industry. I hated just kind of the culture that was being built up around it. And so I ended up leaving, and that's when I got into the cocktail creation. And that's when I started doing cocktail bartending, and I really started enjoying that space, and that just kind of like excited me again. It brought me into this whole new creation realm of like doing so many different things that I couldn't do in the beer side of things that now I can do in the cocktail side. And like now that I'm being able to do both on the same platform, and I can step back and I can look at like what people's reactions are to it, and just also like looking obviously on the book side of things, because I'm looking through all that, just looking at my percentages of like sales and what we're doing. I mean, you can just easily see that cocktails are I'll talk to other breweries and I'll ask them, like, what's your percentages look like? People are saying like 5%, 10%, things like that. Or, I get all that time that like, oh, cocktails will never make up your big portfolio of like what your sales are. It's not true for us. Like, I mean, there is days where it's like 50% of our sales are cocktails. If not, sometimes even I'll do nights where it's more cocktail sales than beer sales. Summertime, it's been a good blend. Getting about like a quarter of it is cocktails, and then beer, and then food. But it's just worked out very well for us, because the feedback I constantly get is, I don't drink beer, but I would have never came here if you didn't have cocktails. And like these big groups of friends that come in, because we're a relatively big space, so we get big parties. Usually there's always going to be people in these parties that don't drink beer, and so they're excited to see that they have cocktails, and that they have that other option, and that option's not just a seltzer. And that actually causes my seltzer to not be that high of a performing seltzer, because I have all these cocktails to kind of remedy that area of not really needing a seltzer. So I think the only seltzer I run right now, I just can it, and that's it. I don't even keep it on tap because it's not worth my tap space. But it's just crazy to see the amount of cocktails that we turn out, like on our event nights. That's like, the unfortunate part is, yes, I have to staff my bar a little more heavily and in a different way as well than what a standard tap room would stack a bar, because we're churning out, we're getting orders of like 10 cocktails and then 2 beers, and that's going to change the flow of the bar and the way that things are coming out. But it's cool to see both sides, and it's cool to just see people in this one space enjoying both things that I get to create, and it makes me really happy to kind of witness that.
And real quick here, I talked to Kiley about his system. What's your system there? How big is your brewing system?
So I'm on a 7-barrel system. It ended up was a used system that I acquired from Barrel 41. Brought it here, installed it, and then added a couple lager tanks and a bright tank to it because that was kind of the other thing that I truly love to do is lagering. So we do a lot of lagers, and so I'm constantly turning over different types of lagers in those tanks on top of doing all the other crazy stuff. That's when you really push me to like what I would love to just continuously keep brewing. It's mostly lagers. Like that's the thing that makes me excited to make amongst everything else. So.
So as a young founder and brewer running both sides of the bar, how do you manage? Is there a workflow issue here between the cocktail, the syrups and the brewing, and is it overcomplicated your day? What's going on?
It's definitely hard to find a balance, and I'm still trying to always fight for that balance because it's a matter of doing, I'm doing the distro, I'm doing the canning, I'm working the bar, I'm doing all the cocktails for the bar, and then I'm also brewing the beer and packaging and all that 9 yards. So I've been trying to get into a relatively good system of dedicating at least 3 days a week to the brew house alone, to doing my brewing work, canning, all that jazz. And then a day of usually I try to get out to my accounts and do any distro that I need to do. And then the last day is typically all my cocktail stuff. So taking care of doing all my batching, making all my syrups, bottling everything, getting everything prepped for the bar, and getting the bar all set up for the weekend and kind of getting that all checked off. So it's been working pretty decent. I'm getting pretty close to start potentially bringing on somebody to take over a lot of my cocktail building and batching, because we do the thing that makes it unique with our bar is we're not an open bar. You can't just order whatever you want from a bar. I have a cocktail menu. That cocktail menu is the only thing you can order from. All the cocktails I batch ahead of time, and then it's built in front of you, essentially. So, mixing the syrups with the spirits and all that jazz, the things that can be built in together are built in together, and then your citruses are left out, which leads to faster build time, so you're not having to try to assemble everything. So I take care of almost all the work for the bartender. So all the bartender has to do is just memorize the mix ratio, which is already, I tape that onto the bottle, so they don't even have to memorize that. But it's essentially just making the mix ratios, shaking it, garnishing it, presenting it. So I take care of most of that work so that our bar can move relatively fast. Because if I didn't do that, it would be a whole different story.
And as I asked Kiley, what is your program as far as, again, another thing that is drawing the young drinkers are NAs and THC, and also lower accessible drinking beers. But you've already addressed that with the lagers, I think.
I have.
So let's talk about what's going on with the THC and the NAs, and how does Hoya Hop House deal with that process?
I carry Athletic. I carry some THC alternatives. I was going to almost make my own NA beverage, but the only issue with my area, with my location, where Waupun is located, you just don't see a ton of NA beer drinkers. It's just not as prominent as it is in Milwaukee or as in Madison. So for me to commit to a 7-barrel batch is a lot to sit on. And also it comes into concerns with packaging, that the stabilizing something that doesn't have alcohol is a lot harder to do, especially on my system. But where I try to focus that on then is making NA cocktails. So we offer, I think 2 of our cocktails right now can be made NA. Usually each weekend I end up selling the same amount of NA cocktail of that same variant that I do the alcoholic version. So we go through a ton of that. And it's relatively simple because all I am is I'm making the syrup that would be made. So the way that I try to think of it in my mind is I try to find a couple cocktails that I can make one syrup for, and then that syrup can also be made to then make the NA as well. So that one syrup I have to make can then service 2 different drinks. There was a famous bar in Milwaukee that just won, or last year I believe they got nominated for the James Beard Award for being able to make every single cocktail on the menu also a non-alcoholic cocktail, which is a really cool kind of idea behind it, and the execution is insane to be able to do that. But it's also why they, got nominated for that, because that's a cool thing to be able to take your entire menu and then offer a non-alcoholic version of that. Because, for a lot of people that don't drink anymore or don't want to drink or are pregnant or etc., but they see something that they really want to try that's alcoholic, it sucks for them that they can't have that. So that's kind of my end goal with a lot of my cocktails, is to try to always think about it in a non-alcoholic version. So
what I just heard is that we have a very, very robust mocktail program, Greg.
Yeah, and it's slowly growing. I just keep the hardest thing for a mocktail program is your pricing. It's always going to be the price. People always have a perception on how expensive a non-alcoholic beverage should cost. So it's really hard to get that cost because it's not taking any less work to make that. Like, it's still taking me the same amount of work to prep that entire syrup, to make it all, for my bartenders to make it. There's nothing, but they're expecting half the price. And that's the hardest thing, is you lose that margin that you just can't get on an alcoholic beverage. And that's the hardest thing to bite. And there's I don't know what the great answer is with that yet, because obviously I don't want to see a $14 mocktail, but also I want to try to make that same level of experience that you can get with an alcoholic and the non-alcoholic, but I don't know the right answer for that yet.
Yeah. Wow. You've stumped me on that one. That's really really excellent perspective that I think a lot of people, because I hear it too, Jarret. I know you heard it, because I hear it. Why am I paying $10 for some juice, right? And it's like, it's not. I mean, you're dumbing it down a little bit there, if that makes sense. Or they are, not you. They are, right?
Yeah.
So wrapping up here, where do you see? I asked Kiley this too. Where do you see us going maybe in a year? Again, you have a different, framework, and that's why I wanted to talk to y'all differently, because Hillsboro comes from more of a traditional. Y'all came out really kind of non-traditional in a lot of ways, especially in my opinion. I wouldn't consider your beer traditional at all, to be honest with you, and that's a good thing. I think that's what you want. I think that's what Hoya Hop House wants, right? But do you feel these trends hardening, or do you feel like this is just a bump? Because we've got the craft beer goes through and again, your craft beer business for sure, Jarret, but you're definitely more diverse, I believe, after having this conversation with you than many breweries are. So where are you seeing the trends, and how's that going to work through with your brewing schedule and your cocktail schedule?
I think what I am noticing, and like so I live in Milwaukee, and so I go out a lot in Milwaukee, and a lot of the things that I'm seeing, it's a lot less about the drinks. It's a lot less about searching for the best beer, searching for the best cocktails, even though the cocktail scene is currently at the highest it's ever been, I think, personally, within around us. It's about the experience. Like, my generation, it's no longer about trying to find who can make the best of the product. It's about what is the best experience that I can have, because I only have so much money to spend for the night, and I want to ensure that the money I'm spending is on a good experience. And so for people, I think it's the location. I think right now it's all about the location and what type of experience and vibe can you give to that person, because they don't have that money to spend. So if I only have $10 to spend, I want to spend that money in a spot where like all my friends can have a good time and it can be like a good vibe. I just think that my generation is kind of prioritizing that now over the product. So I think now it's been more or less investing in our space, in our experience, and what everything looks like. And I'm going to keep pushing my cocktails, keep pushing my beer, but also really focusing on the space aspect and ensuring that, people are having their best experience here, that the atmosphere is what they're looking for, and that the vibe is everything, which I know sounds kind of cringy at times, that you're trying to create this like really good vibe. But like, I want people that if, all they have to spend tonight is on this, I want this to be a really good experience and a really good time for them to come out here and see. And I think that has due in part to a lot of the economic pressure that's currently happening right now. I won't get in, into the politics of side of things, but obviously money is becoming more and more of an issue for my generation. My generation is in debt out the wazoo. And so we're just having that less money that we can spend. And so now it's trying to figure out how we can kind of still keep the young generation involved in this industry, but not make it something that is like unattainable for them or expensive or like push people away because all we do is care about, you know, this hazy IPA. That's all I'm focused on, is just making the best hazy IPA ever. You know, to me, I want to make the best product, but I would rather first see people here in my tap room and enjoying my space than me caring about, you know, what the hell I'm trying to produce. So if that makes sense. And I know maybe that's just an owner side of me. You know, I have to think about the longevity of my business and the longevity of keeping my people employed. So yeah.
Yeah, and y'all got, I mean, I'm just gonna speak for myself. I love the vibe there, and I'm sure it's even better because I haven't been there for, I mean, what is it? It's been a year now or something now. So yeah, Jarret. I just and you know, Hoya, one of the fortunate things about coming out so, you know, being so young is that, you know, y'all came up in a different era. Y'all did not come up in the craft beer era. So you were able to, as you said, you know, kind of set yourself up to be kind of a duality thing going on there with the brewing and the cocktails. And that ultimately, in my opinion, has set you up to weather this storm. Also, your location is, you know, the walkability of it, the Main Street area of it. I mean, there's just so many really good things going on here. And, you know, you're in a bubble too. So that's helpful. You know, sometimes brewers next to each other are helpful, right? Yeah. Sometimes, obviously, you know, just planting yourself and just being the only one there. And like Kiley said too, the community aspect of it. Yeah. And I hit you with that with the first question, and I'll hit it with you in the last one. The community aspect going forward. I mean, that's just what I kind of heard from you too. I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's been a huge drive since we have opened up this business here in our town. The perception that we have gotten from this community has been very positive, and we've been bringing people in that never would go to this type of establishment, and they've just been astonished that like this tiny little town in the middle of nowhere has this type of atmosphere and community and space. And we're constantly pushing events. We're having an event, it seems like almost every weekend at this point. And all these events is just bringing more and more people out to see Waupun, to see this area. We have our largest community event, which comes up in September, which is on 9/19.
Tell us about it.
It's 920. We did it last year. We're doing it again this year. It's an event that showcases the 920 area code. So we reach out to a bunch of vendors within the 920 area code to try to have them come out here, set up in a parking lot, showcase what they do, showcase what makes their business unique and what's cool for them. And we had a good success with it, a good turnout with it last year. I think we ran about 20 vendors last year. We're up to 25 this year. I partnered up with Cocoon, Vault, and Gnarly Cedar to make a beer for this, which is called 920. It's a hoppy Kolsch. So that'll be coming out on that same day. We already brewed that. It's in the works. They're coming here to serve that day too. So they'll be here set up, serving outside, sampling things that they, you know, do in their tap room, what makes them unique, and just kind of showcasing. So it's just an entire day that's supposed to show kind of what makes our area code cool and maybe showcasing businesses that you didn't know existed around you. And so I think the goal for us each year is to just keep growing this event larger and larger until we can accommodate more and more people, hopefully take over a block, and just growing this event to make it. And then it kicks off at the end of the night, or closes at the end of the night with a band.
And this is Saturday the 19th?
Saturday the 19th. It's, what is that, 3-4 weeks away already? So it's right around the corner.
Coming up fast, right.
It's what we've put the most energy into this summer for trying to get it all set up. So we're excited to kind of do it this year again and have it and just keep growing it each year.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I want to thank you for an excellent conversation, telling us about all this. You don't seem as doom and gloom as a lot of people, and that's good, right?
I try not to be. I mean, as much as it's happening in this world, it's hard not to sometimes be gloomy. Amen. But you know, you can't live your entire life always being sad, because, you know, what's that going to get you at the end of the day? So
no, and you know, you probably listen. I'm gonna let you go. You probably have something to dry hop and then a syrup to make So we don't have time for this, Jarret. We got to keep going, right?
Yeah.
You probably have some kegs to drop off. You got something to do. So
I got a
just
damn van I have to fix.
there you go. Right. There's always fires to put out as an entrepreneur. I can relate to that. But I wanted to thank you again for this conversation. And y'all check Hoya Hop House out in Waupun. Obviously, definitely check them out at on 919.
I know it's confusing. Last year it fell on 920, so it was very convenient. This year it has to fall on a Saturday, so unfortunately 919 is the Saturday, but the event is 920. So
yeah, you just named off Vault and North. So those are very good breweries to name drop, believe me. So with that being said, thank you, Jarret. Have a great day, and thank you for your perspective on this. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers. All right, y'all. So before I get out of here, I just want to give y'all we usually have a little editorial part here called the perspective, and my perspective is this at this point, y'all. I'm just going to ad lib this. About 2 weeks ago, we had our closing map that showed that Supermoon and Milwaukee has closed this tap room, but they're still going to distribute, and we'll see what happens with that. That map dropped, and all of a sudden, everybody just started coming in and seeing the map, and it was great. And then everybody started to talk about why craft beer is dead or dying. I'm not sure why one brewery closing means that everything is dying or closing. I didn't understand that. So we put out our opening map then, which our opening map for this year, our closing map has 11 breweries, sadly, on it. Our opening map has 9. And our upcoming map has it says 16, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. Some of them we're not sure about. I'm not gonna tell you which ones we're not sure about. But look on there and you can maybe deduce. My point is, I'm counting 16 and 9. That's 25, and 11 closings, and 25 either just open or down the pike. So Wisconsin is just different, y'all. We drink differently. We have a different culture. I really, really believe it stems with our history. We're the most beer-rich history state in America, if not the richest beer state in America. Please hit me in the comments if y'all have some other state that is deeper in brewing history than Wisconsin. So we have a lot going for us here, and as you heard with with Kiley and with Jarret, whether it's Kiley has his own in-house NA going on, y'all. And Hoya Hop House they're doing cocktails, and you heard Jarret said that their cocktail margins maybe is better than their beer, or not margins, but the percentages. So listen, across the state, our tap rooms are finding ways to do this new wave. You got to remember, y'all, they're the same people that came out when craft beer was booming and all that. There was a reason that craft beer was booming. It was because they were all on point. So the same people are still in business, y'all, and now they have different things that they have to do difficult, but they're navigating it, and they're doing the best they can. And the best thing that we can do, from my perspective, is to go and and now you don't even have to imbibe. You can get mocktails. Kiley's brewing his own NAs. I mean, what are we talking about here? It's a community space, so we're not telling you have to drink even. You're getting married in Hillsboro. They have a wedding venue. Y'all need to stay over. Kiley didn't tell you. They got an Airbnb at Hillsboro. You can stay there, go to the brewery, walk back. So I just wanted to put it out there that yes, we lament every closing, and we don't like any closing, because it's not just about the beer. Wisconsin's always going to have beer, y'all. We're fine with beer, right? It's fine. It's about the community. And you heard both young men here say today about how community is so important to their brewery, what they do, and literally how they run their programs. Like they both said, Jarret was literally talking about the numbers, and Kiley was talking about looking at the books or something like that, right? So our breweries are aware. They know what's going on. They just need our continued support in any way. And it could even be if y'all, you're taking dry time off, or it's just too much. I'm even sharing a post, liking a post, commenting. I mean, there's just so many things that can be done that don't involve drinking, actually. Referring people, telling people. We put out a post this morning about, what was your favorite brewery stop? Sharing a good brewery stop. You went out to Hillsboro and it was amazing. Telling your friends. So there's a lot of things that we could be doing here, y'all. And I just wanted to give that perspective to y'all as we just spoke to two of our youngest brewers in Wisconsin, Kiley Lofy and Jarret Mack. And on that note, I'm going to end this session and say, drink local and stay social. And y'all, we'll see you the next time here on the session with Greg Washington. Cheers.